Obviously, we all know the Green Bay Packers as one of the most historic franchises in NFL history, but in 1991, it was not looking that way. They had been through 3 head coaches in 9 years, and they had only made the playoffs twice since the Vince Lombardi days. But 4 moves from 1992 to 1993 would set them on a path to greatness and change their fortunes forever. The first of those 4 moves were the Packers firing their GM and hiring Ron Wolf. Ron Wolf was a scout for the Raiders back in the 60s, and he was also the vice president of operations for the upstart Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and in his short time with Tampa, they would go from 0-26 to making the conference championship. This was definitely a risky GM hire, as Ron Wolf was not really a part of any franchise for a few years, but it proved to be a great one, with this first move being hiring 49ers offensive coordinator Mike Holmgren as their new head coach. Mike Holmgren had been the offensive coordinator for the 49ers for 3 seasons, ranking 1st, 8th, and 3rd in scoring offense during his tenure there. He was taking over a rather bad offense when in 1991 the Packers had 2 starting QBs, both very bad, so it was clear Holmgren and Wolf would need to find their franchise QB. And with that in mind, enter now all-time great, previously unknown, maybe bust, Brett Favre. In Brett Favre's very short time with the Falcons, he would throw 4 passes with no completions and 2 picks. Many said that giving up a first rounder for Favre was very risky, and there were people a part of Green Bay's committee that also felt that way, including how Brett Favre failed his physical with Green Bay following an automobile accident, but the trade would still go through. They would give up a first rounder for Favre, change Green Bay's history forever. In year 1, though, it was definitely very shaky. With Brett Favre not being the starter throughout their first 2 weeks, they would start 0-2. Then in week 3, midway through the game, Favre would come in and march the Packers down the field to throw a game-winning touchdown. It was clear who the starting QB was. Packers sitting at 1-2, it would not get much better, as they would be 3-6 going into their week 11 matchup. And then the Favre-led Packers would go on a 6-game winning streak with a shot to make the playoffs for their Week 17 matchup versus the Vikings. And as Favre would pull a lot of rabbits out of his hat in his career and in the 92 season, it did not happen that game, as Favre would go for 0 touchdowns and 3 picks. As the Green Bay Packers rush defense would also give up 165 yards, the Vikings would win 27-7, bouncing the Packers out of playoff contention. As Favre would make the Pro Bowl, though, this team's future was definitely looking bright, going from 4-12 to 9-7, and GM Ron Wolf's, head coach Mike Holmgren's, and new QB Brett Favre's first year with the team. Going into the 93 offseason, one unfamiliar face would change the NFL landscape and also the Green Bay Packers landscape for years to come. And that man was Judge David Dottie, who would make a groundbreaking decision in 1993, and that groundbreaking decision was to change the NFL free agency plan from their Plan B plan, which essentially meant teams could protect 37 of 47 players from the free agency market, meaning no real big-name player was able to leave, to a new system where if a player was with a team for 5 years, they could then leave. This was definitely groundbreaking. Not many people used it their first year, as only 4 Pro Bowlers would leave. But in that 4-player list, there is a Jesus-loving, absolute monster in that group, and that man was Eagles' all-time sacks leader, former Defensive Player of the Year, D-end Reggie White. In the midst of a bidding war, Reggie White would choose Green Bay for the 3rd highest deal in the NFL at the time, 4 years, $17 million, which is nothing now, but then that was a lot of money, only behind Dan Marino and John Elway for the highest contracts at the time. Reggie White would change Green Bay's defense in 1990, as he was now the head honcho of the group. Green Bay would go from 22nd in sacks in 1992 to tied for 4th in sacks in 1993. Their scoring defense boosted up to 9th in the NFL, as the Packers would make the playoffs once again at 9-7. Brett Favre would make another Pro Bowl appearance. Brett Favre did still have a problem turning the ball over, though. We do know that would never change, but but in 1993 he would throw 24 picks as opposed to 19 touchdowns, but it was enough where they would beat the Lions in the wild card round. Moving on to the divisional round, they would lose to the almighty early 90s Cowboys, knocking the Packers out of the playoffs. As the Packers definitely took a big leap from 92 to 93, both sides of the ball got a lot better, with Reggie White coming in on the defense and a young Brett Favre continuing to develop on the offense. Moving on to 1994. In 1994, the Packers' scoring defense would jump from 9th to 5th, as on the offensive side of the ball, Brett Favre would have a fantastic 33 touchdown, 14 pick season, leading to Packers to another playoff appearance. This would be their first back-to-back playoff appearances since the Vince Lombardi days. The tides were definitely turning in Green Bay. Oddly enough, though, Brett Favre would not make an All-Pro team or go to the Pro Bowl as he had the prior 2 years. Definitely very strange, but something even stranger is that during the 94 playoffs, they would beat the Detroit Lions during the wild card round once again, and then in the divisional round, they would lose to that same Cowboys team once again. I don't think that's ever happened before, with the same results happening versus the same teams in back-to-back playoff runs. Very strange, but we did see the Packers take another leap in 1994, and their momentum would not be halted in 1995, as Brett Favre would win his first MVP, as the Packers would go on a 6-1 run to end the season. Reggie White would end the year third in Defensive Player of the Year voting. They would win their wild card and divisional round matchups, but they would lose in the NFC title game too. Once again, the Dallas Cowboys, 3 years straight of losing to the Cowboys in the playoffs, and this was oddly very similar to the early 90s 49ers. The Cowboys were just better than other teams during that decade. They were just simply better. But the Packers would get bounced in the NFC title game, but as we all know, in 1996, the Green Bay Packers would take the massive leap. And what do I mean by massive leap? How about first in scoring offense and first in scoring defense, as Brett Favre would win back-to-back MVP awards. The Packers would end their regular season on a 5-game winning streak, and that momentum would not be stopped at all during their first 2 playoff games, as they would win by 2 or more possessions and score 30 plus in both of those matchups, as the Packers would make the Super Bowl for the first time since the 60s, going up against the New England Patriots. And the Packers would go up quick in this game, jumping to a quick 10-0 lead during the first quarter, but the Patriots, also during the first quarter, would score 14 points, Patriots up 14-10 after the first. But during the second quarter, we would see the Packers break loose. With a 17-0 run to finish out the half, the Packers were up 27-14, looking very good, and a half that included 2 long passing touchdowns, including this iconic clip from the Super Bowl in Brett Favre's career.
The lone setback, 2 tight ends set up for the Packers, and Favre back to throw his first one. Going deep, has a man open. Andre Rison does the dance in, and Favre got settled down in a hurry.
That is the way to settle down, yes.
And as the Patriots, down 13 points during the third quarter, desperately needing a drive, would get one, getting a touchdown, now down 27-21. This was now a football game once again. But unfortunately for New England and great for Green Bay, this kickoff return would happen courtesy of Desmond Howard.
Starting to get warmer up here.
It sure is.
Vinatieri. Kick goes to Desmond Howard at the 1. Desmond Howard is off. You better turn it on or he's gone. Desmond Howard all the way into the Patriot end zone. As soon as they get back in it, Green Bay takes it away. 99 yards.
And that was all she wrote for the Super Bowl. The Packers would end up winning 35-21, dominating on all 3 phases of the ball. The defense would force 4 turnovers. The special teams would get the Desmond Howard kickoff return TD. And the offense would just play very efficiently with the 81-yard bomb to Antonio Freeman. As Brett Favre would get his first Super Bowl win, And this Green Bay Packers regime would peak in 96 with a Super Bowl win, #1 scoring offense, #1 scoring defense, one of the most iconic and underrated seasons in NFL history in my eyes. Now, obviously, with every peak, there has to be a fall, yet the Packers proved to not be a one-hit wonder. Starting 97 off 3-2 was definitely a little sketchy, but as this 90s Packers team usually did, they would close the year out playing phenomenal, going on a 10-1 run to end the season, making the playoffs once again. As the team would finish top 5 in scoring offense and scoring defense, Brett Favre would win his 3rd straight MVP, and they would once again win both the divisional and conference championship rounds by 2 or more possessions, this time facing up against John Elway and the Broncos in the Super Bowl. And as Brett Favre would play similar to the 96 Super Bowl, playing very well, the Broncos' rushing offense, headlined by Terrell Davis, would dominate the Packers for 39 rushes, 174 yards, and 4 touchdowns. Including this all-time clip of, as we all know, John Elway turning into a helicopter.
6 from the 12, Elway. And again, Tom, the scramble.
And what a great effort at the end. That was the only way he was going to get the first down. He goes through 3 Packers, and he's the only one.
But the Packers had a chance with under 2 minutes to march down the field and hopefully tie the game up 31-31, and that was definitely how it looked within 4 plays. Brett Favre and the Packers were knocking on the Broncos' doorstep at their 35-yard line with 1 minute and 4 seconds left, looking phenomenal, but Favre would go 0 for 3 during his next 3 passes, and that was all she wrote as John Elway would kneel, and the Packers would fail to go back-to-back. John Elway would win his first Super Bowl, which is very iconic, but definitely saddening for a fantastic Packers team, as they would fail to do something that very few teams have done, proving just how hard that is. And as 96 was definitely this Packers team peaked, 97 was not them falling whatsoever. It was 1998 that saw that occur. Now, when I say that, I do not mean that the team played bad whatsoever. They would go 11-5, as Reggie White would actually win Defensive Player of the Year at 37 years old. This Packers team was still playing very good football. Brett Favre would not win 4 straight MVPs, as well one would think, but Favre was fucking phenomenal back then. And the Packers would clinch yet another playoff game versus a 49ers team that they had beaten 5 times in 3 years, including once during this 98 season. Should be a breeze, hoping to get back to the Super Bowl for the 3rd year straight. That would change with this iconic all-time Terrell Owens touchdown with 8 seconds left.
Somehow, some way, Owens right down the middle. The coverage was there. The ball had to be perfect. It was. He caught it. Niners will win it.
And as the Packers were still very good, that was the dagger in the 90s Packers' heart. As the heroes of the story, Reggie White would retire, Mike Holmgren would leave Green Bay for Seattle, and it only took 2 more seasons for Ron Wolf to hang his hat up. As in those 2 years, the Packers would go 8-8 and 9-7. They would fail to make the playoffs. We all know that Brett Favre would stay with the team for many, many years to come and continue to play fantastic football. It took one GM, one head coach, one very risky trade for a very risky QB, and a judge to change the free agency rules and get Reggie White to the depths of hell of Wisconsin, aka Green Bay, a place where it was not cool to play at. You did not expect big names to want to willingly go to Green Bay. That's exactly what Reggie White did, and the Packers would make the playoffs for 6 years straight, including 2 Super Bowl appearances, one of them ending in a win. This Packers team changed Green Bay's fortune forever, as this Packers team featured some of the most iconic plays in NFL history, whether it was for or against them. This is an all-time team that does not get talked about nearly enough in terms of team greatness and changing the NFL landscape forever.